on time now, so let us start. Let me just start by saying to all of the 56 participants that I am Peter Lorange. I'm chairman of the Lorange Network. And today we have a very distinguished panel. We have Prinz Michael of Liechtenstein, and we have Wolfgang Grupp Senior, as well as Wolfgang Grupp Junior. The groups are the owners of Trigema, the very large German clothing company, which is also very big when it comes to virtual retailing. And the topic today is what can small and medium-sized companies do in these times of crisis? Perhaps we should say, what can they do? Because many of the things we can do are independent of the crisis as such, but maybe we are raising this issue particularly now. So what I'm going to say is that I will post some questions to each, and I will ask one of the panelists to be the main respondent, and then ask the other panelists to complement. I would also like to say that part of the discussion will be in German, and part will be in English, but that should be no problem. But before doing that, let me just ask each of you to say a few more words about yourselves. Michael, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'm Michael Liechtenstein. I started actually my career in the food business. I worked for more than 10 years for Nestle, mostly in Northern Europe and in Africa. And at the end, I was in the product manager, was heading the product management for the deep frozen product division in Switzerland. And then I took over a very small financial services business here at Liechtenstein, which I developed, which is Industrie- und Finanzkontor. I'm sitting now in the office of Industrie- und Finanzkontor, which I'm leading now since about 30 years. But I found that basically one other business. This is a geopolitical intelligence service where we run a network of about 180 experts in economics and politics worldwide in order to get genuine information. So we don't do any open source research. We really work with experts to give genuine information. And the idea is to give our clients a basis for decisions. This is my path, so I'm heading to companies. I'm also heading a think tank.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Prinz Michael. And please excuse me that I call you Michael, but should be Prinz Michael, but let that be.
But just continue to call me Michael. This is
okay,
fine.
Thank you very much, Michael. That's great. And let me now turn to the Wolfgang Grupp Senior and Wolfgang Grupp Junior. Maybe you can say a few words about yourselves.
I was starting before now 51 years, 1969. My grandfather, the father of my mother, he was starting with the textile production in Germany, 1919. I'm in the third generation, and I was starting with underwear. And we make only underwear for the big magazines or the big mail order houses. And not with Trigema, Mr. Mark Trigema. We make it with for the mail order house or for the big magazines for her name, Karstadt, Kaufhof, and for Otto Versand or for Quelle. And with this brand, we make not own brand, so the brand of our customer. And now change now in this time in the 70 years, I changed to make T-shirt and sweatshirt and casual wear. And now I make it more than 50 years. And my position was always, I have workers, and I want that the worker is working with me, but I give him always the guarantee that he make a good working, that I give insurance working place. And I guarantee for every workers in our house always the place for his life, if he want that. And in this difficult situation, Corona crisis, it's that a very good idea. Then we are a big family. And also I give the guarantee in this Corona crisis that if the worker, the employer is make the Verantwortung, the responsibility for himself, then I give him the guarantee for his working place. And this together is for us always important. And we have now finance from Staat, or wie heißt das?
We don't have any official funding from the government.
And we have 100% Eigenkapital.
We finance everything 100% ourselves. We have no separate loans.
And we have now credit. I have always in my life, I give that money out what I have, and not credit and all these things. That is my first principle. And in this big crisis, it's now that for us very important that we are autark and we make that what we can and not what other peoples make for us. So
that's excellent. That's extremely good what you're saying. And it's good to hear what you're saying, because this is back to really what family companies can stand for. That's excellent. And I like to maybe ask you now, Prinz Michael, the first question, and that is in line with that. What can small and medium-sized businesses do today to survive in this situation, with or without the Corona crisis? And what actually are the key points today for small and medium-sized businesses?
You know, I think we shouldn't look only at the crisis, and I think it's like your personal health. When you are a healthy person and you have a working immune system, etc., a disease is not such of a problem, and you can easily survive it, and you are strong, and you can take these doses. If you are unhealthy, a disease, even a flu, it doesn't need to be the coronavirus, can do big damage to you. And with a company, it is very similar. And as Wolfgang Grupp just said before, I think you have to have a healthy company. And you always have to develop with the time, with the market. You have to have solid finances. You have to go with the market. You have to know your customers. You have to know the people who are working with us. And one has to be, markets are changing, the world is changing. One has to remain innovative. And if one lives to these principles, I think one can much better weather a crisis as we have now. And it is also, this is a strength of family companies, because family companies, which are entrepreneurial managed, have normally a much longer timeline and a much longer thinking way than companies which are actually driven by managers.
That's very interesting. So may I ask you, Mr. Grupp, whether you'd like to add something to this?
Ja, ich spreche jetzt Deutsch, das ist ein bisschen besser. Das ist richtig. Ein Familienunternehmen muss etwas langfristig denken und hat keine Verpflichtung, sozusagen Shareholder Value und so weiter. Und wir machen das immer so. Ich sage jetzt mal, ich muss wissen, was ist im nächsten Jahr, was kommt auf uns zu, und muss den Wandel der Zeit rechtzeitig erkennen. Und das ist meine Aufgabe als Inhaber. Ich muss erkennen, was ist heute, was muss ich heute tun, damit wir nächstes Jahr immer noch dabei sind. Und das ist ganz wichtig, und vor allem muss ich für mein Tun konstant die Verantwortung übernehmen und die Haftung. Ich habe ja eine Rechtsform der persönlichen Haftung, und bevor ein anderer sozusagen sein Geld verliert, habe ich mein gesamtes Privatvermögen eingesetzt. Und das ist ganz wichtig. Deshalb vertrauen mir die Mitarbeiter auch mehr. Und meine Kunden, die etwas zugesagt kriegen, wissen, dass ich persönlich in der Verantwortung bin.
Das ist sehr wichtig. Sehr gut. Vielleicht, perhaps you could summarize, Mr. Grupp Jr., a little bit of what your father said there.
So what my father said is that we don't work after the shareholder value principle. So we don't always look at short term. We always look in the long term in everything we do. And it is very important for us, which my father very much also says is important, that the responsibility of the managers are taken in the companies. And in a family business, that is automatic. He is sole owner and 100% liable through the eingetragener Kaufmann, I'm not sure what's that's in English, through the structure he has, which means that he is responsible for every decision he takes, and if it's bad, then his own wealth is also taken in, and that's what we think is a very, very important part, and also to go through crises in order to say, okay, no, I do not always need to look at the next 2 months, but it needs to be long-term, and then a crisis like this, which might be also 3-4 months, shouldn't be a problem if you look in the long term, because there can always be ups and downs.
That's very good. Thank you. That's great. I like to ask a follow-up question on that, and maybe I can ask you, Mr. Grupp. I mean, in countries, even in great countries like in Germany, there are certain government regulations, tax regimes, trade unions, legal issues, bureaucracy at the government level. Are there issues there that are hampering you in, should we say, doing things your private way?
This is is the question specifically on the crisis at the moment? We cannot say this at all. We don't have any government supports financially because we do it by ourselves, but we can say the government is very responsive if we have questions, or they work very closely together with companies. Like us, we got contacted by the government a lot. No, we do not generally also have the feeling that the bureaucracy or the things in Germany are hindering us. We say ourselves, we need to do the things without politics. We need to say, okay, what is the right way for us? But the politics gives us the structure, right? But we never thought that they are hindering us for doing something. No, it's a working together, because we personally believe the politics needs the small, medium companies, right? And the small, medium companies also need the structure of the politics itself. And I think when we look at how Germany has developed in the past years, I think not everything can say that so much has been hindering some developments. I think they've been doing quite well. So I think the working together from SMEs and politics actually works quite well.
That's excellent to hear. I'm very glad to hear that.
Vielleicht kann ich noch etwas dazufügen.
Ja, gerne.
Der Vorteil unserer Firma ist, dass ich erstens Alleininhaber bin und damit alleine entscheiden kann. Und wenn ich jetzt die Corona-Krise nehme, dann ist vor der Krise, also bevor bei uns groß die Krise begann, wurde ich gefragt, ob ich nicht helfen kann, Kliniken oder wie gesagt Pflegeheimen, die bräuchten dringend Mundschutzmasken. Und da wir konstant, ich sag mal, sehr flexibel in der Produktion sind und generell in ruhigen Zeiten voll auf Lager arbeiten, konnte ich problemlos die Produktion umstellen, und wir haben dann gesagt, wir helfen gerne und machen eine Maske. Ich wusste aber zu diesem Zeitpunkt nicht, dass 14 Tage später meine Geschäfte geschlossen werden und mir damit 50% des Absatzmarktes wegbricht. Und das war mal wieder interessant, dass ich entschieden habe, zu helfen und indirekt mir selber geholfen habe, weil wir haben dann natürlich durch die Nachfrage der Mundschutzmaske sozusagen eine Riesennachfrage bekommen und haben jetzt ein Problem, dass wir so viele Aufträge haben und wir dringend wieder unser normales Programm fertigen müssten. Das heißt, wir sind in dieser Riesenkrise, wo andere Kurzarbeit machen und Staatshilfen beantragen, sind wir durch unsere Flexibilität, schnelle Entscheidung und Lösen des Problems haben wir die Garantie der Arbeitsplätze halten können und sind autark geblieben.
Sehr gut. Could you please summarize that, Wolfgang Grupp?
Yes. So for the fact that my father is sole managing director and the things, we were able before the crisis, or even before the crisis, or at the beginning of the crisis, to take decisions extremely quickly. So we started because a clinic and a old people's home came to us and said we need masks. Then we decided very quickly to produce masks, which is now our big advantage in the crisis, because we have more orders than we can actually deliver. And that's why we never actually thought about needing help from politics, because we were able to do the masks in the whole. And we were only able to do this since we have very small hierarchies, and we do not have, and decisions were made quickly, right? If we would have waited 3-4 weeks, then it would have been a lot more difficult, because one day to another, which was a week after we started developing the masks, all our shops were closed, right? So a big part, over 50% of our weekly income was then closed, from 50% to zero, and due to the mask and the quick decisions we were able to take and reactions, and this was leveled out.
Very impressive. I like to follow up with a question along these lines, but for you, Prince Michael, what do you feel we can learn from when it comes to today's situation from earlier times? We have a crisis, but even without a crisis, what can we learn from earlier times? And what did we not learn given this crisis?
Well, I think you need, as an entrepreneur, it is a constant learning process, whether you're in the crisis or not. Now, there is sometimes in the crisis, changes happen, and changes happen quicker than normally, and are less easy to plan. But I think the knowledge, the reason is, first, you have to be prepared for the crisis. You have to be prepared for the crisis financially, with the management, not having too high costs, having loyal collaborators, etc., as Mr. Grupp told you. And in the crisis, I think you need always to have flexibility. And the flexibility you have, if you have a good decision structure, and if you know your business very well, you know what you can do, and if you know also you have to have a knowledge of your markets and the possibilities of the markets. So it is always being close to the business. I don't think making adventures, but also it needs a certain courage to decide something. And this is, I think, well, we have periods where it is more stable, and then we get into a crisis. And I think one should never be surprised in the crisis. I think a problem which we have now is that our societies in Europe are pretty spoiled. And we don't really want to have risks anymore. We want to hedge against every risk. But when you have a hedge against every risk, you're also hedging against opportunities.
That's right. And
so I think one shouldn't be surprised. I think a crisis is a total normal thing which happens from time to time. So I think that the learning process is one shouldn't be too surprised by a crisis.
That's very good. I like that. And it's interesting that we are perhaps managing ourselves to become such risk-averse persons that there is nothing we can learn, there is nothing we can do. And I think your points are very well taken, Prince Michael. Could I ask you, Wolfgang, whether you want to comment a little bit more on this? What can we learn from the crisis?
Was wir von Krisen lernen können.
Also wir müssen vor allem aus Krisen lernen, kann man sicher etwas, aber für mich ist viel wichtiger, wir müssen uns vorbereiten, dass wir Krisen problemlos überstehen können. Und da ist vor allem, dass wir vorher der Gier und dem Größenwahn, der überall herrscht, immer noch größer, immer noch mehr, dass wir dem Einhalt gebieten. Auch in Familienunternehmen. Immer noch größer die Welt erobern und am Schluss ist man sein eigener Herr nicht mehr, weil man Investoren reinnehmen muss und all das. Deshalb sage ich, wenn ich dran denke, wir hatten ja früher auch Krisen, New Economy Krise, wir hatten die Bankenkrise, Lehman Brothers und was da alles war. Und ich sage mal, die konnte Trigema nie tangieren, weil wir im Prinzip auch unsere Grenzen kannten und wussten, das können wir. Und meine Firma darf so groß werden, dass ich sie immer noch voll überblicken kann. Und solange ich sie voll überblicken kann, kann ich auch die volle Verantwortung übernehmen. Aber größer zu werden und nicht mehr überblicken können und die Verantwortung übernehmen, das passt nicht. Und deshalb sind wir auch gefeit in einer Krise, auch wenn das die schwierigste Krise bisher war, sie eventuell zu überstehen, weil wir kurzfristig in der Lage sind, zu erkennen und zur Entscheidung und vor allem die Entscheidung durchführen können. Und das ist, glaube ich, das Wichtigste. Gier und Größenwahn einschränken und die Zügel an der Hand haben, dass man auch weiß, was man tut und die Verantwortung für sein Tun.
Das ist sehr interessant. Danke vielmals. Can you summarize that?
So when we say what you learn about the crisis, it's what we need to learn from it is to always be prepared as a company to be able to overcome a crisis. So we should not always have greed and megalomania to always become bigger, 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 and then a crisis becomes a lot more difficult to handle. It's very important that companies are in a size where they're able to handle very good parts of the economy and then also crises, because this is obviously one of the most difficult crises we're having at the moment, but it's not the only crisis which company has gone through, right? We had the new economy crisis, we had the banking crisis with Lehman Brothers and everything, and a company which has a long-term perspective needs to know that Corona is not going to be the last crisis which is going to happen, and that's why they need to have their structure in a way to always overcome new crises as well. And we are hoping with our structure where we have quick decisions, where we have full responsibility of my father for the decision he makes, and therefore some decisions might not be sometimes we could be bigger and more, but no, we keep it at a level so we know we can also hopefully get through this crisis and also crisis in the future. So it's very important to not have the greed and megalomania in good times, to always keep it as a level and always know, okay, a kind of economical breakdown can come, a crisis can come, and there you know always need to also be stable in the optimal without state help.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And maybe I could ask a follow-up question to the groups first, and then to you later, Prinz Michael. You already touched on it at the group, the Trigema and so. How important are family values in business today? If you could be specific, you've already touched on it several times, but I'd like to hear more. What are the family values?
Die Familie ist bei uns ganz wichtig. Ja. Und die Werte der Familie sind wichtig. Ich sage immer, man lernt den Wert einer Familie erst kennen, wenn man keine mehr hat. Und wir sind diejenigen, die auch den Mitarbeitern die Familie im Prinzip immer präsentieren. So wie es für mich selbstverständlich war, dass meine Kinder, die waren im englischen Internat, sie haben in London studiert, aber es war klar, dass sie nach dem Studium gerne und sofort freiwillig in die Firma wollten, weil die Familie zusammengehört und wir besprechen alles. Wir sind nicht neidisch oder sonst etwas. Bei uns, die Familie ist der oberste Punkt und das wissen die Mitarbeiter. Und wir haben letztes Jahr 100-jähriges Jubiläum gefeiert und das war ein ganz großes Familienfest. Helene Fischer war Stargast und es kamen viele Politiker und alles. Und da waren die Mitarbeiter stolz, in dieser Betriebsfamilie sozusagen Mitglied der Betriebsfamilie zu sein. Und dieses Zusammengehörigkeitsgefühl lässt uns natürlich viel leichter auch Probleme lösen, weil man zusammenhält. Und wir arbeiten jetzt samstags, wir arbeiten abends, wir arbeiten Nachtschichten, weil die Leute mithelfen wollen, dass wir die Krise positiv bewältigen.
Das ist fantastisch. Maybe you could summarize that, Mr. Grupp Jr.
So the family in our company is a key part of the philosophy. All the values we have in our small family are also in our big company family. My father said this is for me then difficult to translate, but my sister and I, we then also, it was normal that we were going to also come in the company to continue or try and continue the family tradition. And this is normal, and it is very important. Our values, we value in our small family, we also put into the big company values. Last year, we celebrated our 100 years company celebrations, where we had a family celebration with all our employees, and all the guests were all together in one big event tent, because it's very important everyone is one. And this is also one of the things why we can now get through the crisis, because we work 6 days a week, including Saturdays, right? Everyone works together because we are one big company family and go through the problems together, because we know that's what we need in the long term, right? And I think this is a key, I personally think this is a key value of the company, and also is shown now in a crisis, that no one says, okay, no, this is too much, or I don't want to do this because I'm very distant to the owners or to the shareholders. No, it's all very close, and that's why everyone, and we have all our employees also long here. We have every year, we have employees which are 40 years, 50 years in the company, and they obviously they're longer here than I'm alive, right? So they're obviously part of the big family.
Interesting. Very. Prince Michael, do you like to expand on this question of the value of the family values in business?
Well, I fully agree, which was said before. This is very clear, and I think the important thing is also because it is important the long term. That means the generations to come, and I think what is important that the parents already give when the children are still very young, the example, and to show that having a company, having a business, having an enterprise is a big responsibility. It is also a pleasure, because responsibility is also something which is good, because it gives one a purpose. One needs a purpose. And I think it is to teach the next generation, by the parents' example, this notion of responsibility. And this is also then the reason for success, because you take care. You know that you're responsible. You know that you just can't sneak out of something, and you know we all get some talents. And in German, there's a beautiful word which is called Vermögen, and Vermögen means, from the word, it is something which can do something, which can result in something. So if you get something, whether you have a company or whether you have a certain education or a certain skill, I think you have a responsibility to make something out of it. Yes. You just shouldn't neglect it and do it. And I think this notion of responsibility, and it also needs a certain notion of, I think, purpose, of gratitude, of a certain humbleness, and you shouldn't be greedy. And I think if you have that, you can also be successful in business.
That's very good.
If you're either too greasy or megalomaniac, etc., this has then all the ingredients of disaster.
That's a very, very important what you said there for many of us to keep in mind now during these revisionist periods that the crisis has brought up. Before I go on, and I want to ask you some more in a little while, Prince Michael, but before that, I like to say goodbye to our basic members. As you know, we have a situation that as basic members, you can only hear so much or read so much, and you need to upgrade to become a premium member if you want to participate in the whole thing. And Karin will contact you regarding that. But let me say goodbye and thank you to those of you who are not yet premium members.